Maudler and joyfully hitched man Evan Weber, Keanu Reeves, has the house to himself and his canine monkey on Father's Day end of the week, due to work and a physical treatment arrangement due to a bear damage, whereas his spouse and children go on a family-planned shoreline trip. His spouse Karen, Ignacia Allamond, a effective craftsman, takes off their partner Louis, Aaron Burns, in charge of her design that ought to be moved to an craftsmanship display. Alone in his wonderful and costly domestic, Evan works on renderings for an continuous house venture. That evening, youthful two ladies, beginning, Lorenza Izzo, and Belle, Ana de Armas, arrive and thump on his front entryway. He opens the entryway and they say that they are seeking out for the address of a party, but since their phone passed on, the taxi driver dropped them off. As they have no implies of communication, Evan permits them in to use the web and get hold of the party's have. Once they discover the correct address, Evan offers to call an Uber driver for them, but the closest driver will take 45 minutes to reach. In the meantime, the young ladies make themselves at domestic and Evan plays a couple of his ancient vinyl records he has from when he was a circle move. The discussion rapidly turns into their conclusions, almost human polygamy, and they tell Evan almost their occupations as flight orderlies as well as how they lock in sexual activity with an unused man in each city they fly to. They at that point vanish to the washroom, and when their driver at last arrives, a cautious Evan finds them within the lavatory, exposed and yearning for him. Shocked, Evan tries to persuade them to take off, but as they begin constraining themselves upon him, he gives in and encompasses a trio with them. The taking after day, Evan finds them eating breakfast and watching family quarrel, not stressed at all, almost taking off. He loses his tolerance and offers to drive them domestic, since they have not taken the cab. Evan returns inside as it were to discover out that his wife's form, which Louis was gathered to gather for the craftsmanship exhibition, has been vandalized. When Evan debilitates to call the police, the young ladies uncover they are underage, appearing they have control over him or chance charges on sexual conduct with a minor. Vivian, Colleen Camp, a companion of Karen's, stops by to see in case Evan needs offer assistance. Seeing beginning, Vivian furiously clears out, considering that Evan is cheating on Karen. A stunned Evan tries to create sense of the circumstance, since he realized that everything the young ladies had said was a lie arranged to urge him in bed. When Evan debilitates to report a break-in, they grant in and concur to be taken domestic. He drops them off at an upscale neighborhood where they evidently live. Evan returns domestic, cleans the mess, and tries to go back to his work. Fair as Hayes getting closer to completing his venture, he listens a shattering commotion. He goes searching for the source of the clamor as he is as far as anyone knows alone inside. He finds a broken picture frame of his family and beginning thumps him out with one of his wife's figures. The two vile ladies tie Evan up and go through his family's possessions. Belle climbs onto him attempting to stir him, whereas role-playing as a school young lady in his daughter's school uniform. Evan at first denies, but the young ladies undermine to FaceTime his spouse with him in a compromising position. Indeed, in spite of the fact that this appalls him, Evan realizes that by moving on the bed he can extricate his binds, so he plays along. Belle semi-rapes him, and unbeknownst to him, beginning records everything. Some minutes afterward, Evan at long last discharges himself where he hops at Belle and thumps her off. He charges at Genesis, who cuts him in his injured bear with a fork. She at that point pins him to the ground and both girls proceed to tie him up to a chair with electrical rope. Later on, Louis arrives to gather the design Karen cleared out him in charge of. The young ladies take Evan's phone and content Louis saying his niece and her companion are remaining over. They stow away Evan in a room. Louis enters utilizing his keys. He alarms upon finding the vandalized design and quickly realizes these young ladies are lying around their connection to Evan. Louis at that point finds Evan tied up to a chair, but sometime recently he can offer assistance he listens the young ladies crushing the vandalized design. He runs to halt them, but at that point has an asthma attack, and realizes they took his inhaler. The young ladies play monkey in the middle with his inhaler, and as he tries to urge it back, he slips on a bit of the sculpture and thumps his head on the edge, murdering him. Beginning and Belle turn Louis's dead body into a ruddy form and burrow a temporary grave within the terrace implied for Evan. They too uncover to him that they had been spying on him all along for a few days presently. He comes up short in his different endeavors to form an crisis call and to elude from the house. They tie him up with a hose, at that point bury him within the gap, clearing out as it were his head over ground. Genesis shows Evan the video she recorded prior with his phone of him and Belle having sex. As a horrified Evan observes on, she transfers it to his Facebook profile. Eventually, they save Evan's life, going against the thought of murdering him within the same design they had killed Louis. Uncovering that it had all been an amusement which they're utilized to deceiving fathers into this sort of circumstance, the two vile ladies at last withdraw and take the pooch monkey with them. Taking off a broken Evan to his destiny in attempting to burrow himself out of the gap he is buried in, whereas observing the transferred video with comments coming in. Karen and the kids arrive domestic to see the complete house destroyed. Evan's child says Daddy had a party as Karen and the kids stay stunned. Now that we did the right tone and right scenes, what would you do if you're in his situation? Would you do the same, or you would tell them to get lost and be on your way? Out of 100 male who will answer this, how many would you think will and won't? Tough answer for a tough question. We did this just to make you guys be aware. This is a great example of how females can easily manipulate men anywhere around the world. Men are just like a slave who can be puppeted by females and be their slaves the entire time. They can put men in a snap out of nowhere if they want to. Men have the courage to say no, but no